So for the incubation period for hepatitis, it's only HBsAg antigen that is there. That is the only one that is there. So acute infection. Once we hear acute, what should come to our mind is IgM. It is IgM that is reflective of acute. When it is chronic, IgG, majorly IgG, acute IgM. Now, because this is an infection, HBsAg has to be there because that is the marker for the infection. It is just the duration of that HBsAg that you used to know that is this chronic or acute. Once HBsAg is positive for more than 6 months, that is chronic infection. So that is the difference between acute and chronic infection. In all infection for hepatitis, you are having presence of that HBsAg. It's one of the most important marker you always want to look out for. So if you see somebody, you did a test for somebody now, you notice that HBsAg is positive, you know that, okay, this person has an infection. How do we now know if it's a chronic infection or an acute infection or the person is still incubating? So what you just do is you can just check for your anti-HBC. The next thing to do, just look for anti-HBC. The thing is, you are not going to look for anti-HBS. Why? Because it's not possible for you to have HBS antigen and be having anti-HBS antibody. Do you guys get? It's not possible for both of them to coexist. Do you guys understand that? So
One has to
once
dominate over the other.
exactly. So once HBsAg is there, the next thing, let's check for the anti-HBC to the core. Now we have two types for the core, IgM or IgG. So whichever one is present will determine the duration of that infection. So if it's IgM that is present, you know that, oh, this is likely to be an acute infection. If it's IgG that is present, this is likely to, and if it's IgG that is present and HBsAg is positive, that is likely to be a chronic infection.
A chronic infection.
You know that we are still talking about infection. No? We are not talking about window. We are not talking about recovery. We are not talking about immunization. All those ones are not infection. No? If you are talking about infection, is it that you are talking about incubation, you are talking about acute infection or chronic infection? And we said in incubation, the seroconversion thing has not even started. So the only thing that you just see there is your HBsAg antigen. The person is infected. In acute infection, HBsAg antigen will be there. And if you check your anti-HBC, this thing is always very stressful to be calling. Antibody to the core. Once you see IgM, you know that that is acute infection. If you see antibody, IgG antibody to the core, that is chronic infection. Now, we are done. To just further qualify that infectivity, you want to look for HBe antigen. Is it positive? That means that that person has a very high viremia, and there's a high chance that that person can transmit that infection once HBe antigen is present. That's just what it means. So then we go to the window period. So we've said the window period already, so we move in recovery. Recovery means that, okay, the person had infection and he has recovered and the person is immune. That's what it means. Once you are able to recover, you'll be immune. So what are those markers? Anti-HBs. I've said it that once somebody have anti-HBs, that person is immune to hepatitis because the antibodies are there to neutralize the surface antigen that is a marker for infectivity. So any HBsAg antigen that comes around, anti-HBs are there to neutralize it. So in recovery, you will have your anti-HBs. You also have IgG to the core. You see that once somebody have infection to that core, forget about it. Once somebody have infection from hepatitis, that anti-HBC antibody will be formed. It will be formed. Unless maybe you are immunized. If it's due to immunization that is the way the organism got into you, the person will not have the core. The person will not have the IgG to the core. But once there's a real infection, forget about it. The core will be the IgG to the core will be there, particularly when it is chronic or following recovery. It will be there. It will always be there. So you are always going to, when you are doing your seroconversion, you are always going to produce antibody against the core. So, but don't worry, guys. The stuff might be looking mixed up. By the time we are how do I put it? By the time what I'm trying to say is that if I give us like a reading now, let's say I give you a situation of HBsAg is positive, anti-col is positive, HBE is positive. What is that? You guys will be able to answer it. Once you just need to understand what each means. You don't need to even memorize
Okay.
it. You'll find it. You'll be able to
Yeah.
figure it out. You just need to understand what
Yeah.
they represent.
What each of them stands for.
That is
Yeah.
it. That's just what
I
you
think
need.
that's the basic knowledge. Yeah, that's what I
That's the
think I
basic
can
stuff
grab
that you
from.
need. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for the recovery, IgG antibody to the core will be present. And of course, you will have also, produced antibody against the E2, that envelope. So that one too will be present. And that one is also present in the window. It's also there in the window. But the most important one for the window is actually that IgM to the core. So the reason why anti-HBE is also present in the window is that in that window, the only one that you have not cleared completely is the surface. You have eradicated your your what's it called? Your envelope antigen. So because of that they have taken out the envelope antigen, they can now develop antibody against the envelope antigen. So that is why it's there. So
No, Dr. Babawale, I
yeah,
thought we said that during window period, what the body is trying to do is that it's trying to reduce or decline the surface antigen and then produce antibody against the surface antigen,
exactly.
against the agent. But you just said core now.
No. I said envelope. I didn't say core. Envelope.
Oh, you just said envelope now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can you repeat that, please?
So envelope has been eradicated completely in the window. It has been eradicated completely. It is only the core
That means the infectivity is out of it.
is out of it. Yes. Is out of it in the window. Is out
In
of
the
it in the
window
window.
period.
Yes.
Okay.
So the E has been eradicated completely, and the anti-HBE is the one that is there.
Okay.
And that
So once you
HBsAg,
see anti-HBE, that means that the person has eradicated infectivity entirely.
no, I don't understand that too. The
You
person
said
cannot transmit it.
you said I hear now. That means I'm just trying to say that if we are having an antibody against the infectivity or against the envelope, means that there's no infectivity again. Like the infectivity is very low.
It's very low. Exactly. It's very low. So in that window period, that window period is just next to recovery. You guys can see the chart. It's just very next to recovery. It's just next to recovery. Once you are able to now produce antibody against the S, you have entered recovery. Because the only thing that is waiting, that is separating window from recovery is what? Is just appearance of that anti-HBs. Once anti-HBs shows like this, recovery don't start. You don't dey recovered with that. So that means the person cannot get infected. But you know that what is happening in the window is that the person is already clearing all the antigens, including HBs and HBE. HBE has been totally cleared. But HBs is still remaining little. It's still remaining little. So that is why anti-HBs cannot be formed, because there's still some little HBs there. It's just that they are below the level of detection. That is why it is very rare for that person to transmit infection in window period, because there's very low level of HBs, and again the HBE is not even there. So that is it. So the person cannot transmit that guy in somebody can transmit the infection in incubation period. They can, because the HBs antigen is there. They can. So they can transmit in acute. HBs antigen is there. So chronic, someone that is chronically infected can transmit it. They can. So those 3 periods they can transmit it. So
But Dr. Babawale,
yeah, Dr. Olusola.
can somebody go from acute infection? Okay, somebody who is in can somebody go from acute infection then go to window?
Yes. So
then
that is it.
Go to chronic again. Is it possible?
No. You cannot go from window to chronic. No.
So once you are in window.
Yes. For you to enter window, it means you are immunocompetent. That's what it means. You are immunocompetent. You can eradicate.
So you are just waiting for your visa and straight.
Exactly. you can eradicate that antigen. It's people that cannot eradicate antigen. The antigen is now spending more than 6 months in their liver that they are having issues. So that one will go to chronic, and that's why they say, if you check literature, they will tell you that in chronic infection there's no window. There's no window in chronic infection. There's no window. So, but in you can move from the acute. If they start clearing, you go to the window, then recovery. You can see that it's even here now. Look at the chart. Incubation to acute to window to recovery. You can see. So in some people, they can go from acute to chronic. So, that's another pattern, which occurs in like maybe 5% of adults. So let's go to the chronic. HBS antigen is present for more than 6 months. The person will have produced antibody against the core too. The IgG will be there. And of course, the HB antigen too will be there. That's chronic. So for chronic low infectivity, it's just that HB antigen will not be there. So it means that the person is having a chronic infection, but the person has a very little chance of transmitting it because of the low IgM, what's it called, HB antigen, so low infectivity. For people that are immunized, once you give the person the antigen, the person produce the anti-HBs. That is all. The particle doesn't contain all these other call and the stuff. It's just the HBs, and that one will be cleared off. They'll just produce the anti-HBs and they move. The body will clear off the HBs AG antigen. So in immunized individuals, you only have the anti-HBs. So once you see that anti-HBs, you should be happy. It's a very good prognostic stuff. Once you see anti-HBs, you should be happy for that person. Is it that the person is immunized or the person has recovered from a previous infection? Yeah, but you don't see anti-HBs in a chronic infection because that means the person is having an infection. You will not see anti-HBs there because in someone that's having an infection, HBs AG antigen will be positive. Do you guys get it?
Yes.
So I know that it can be.
So the fact that
Another thing that I just wanted to note was that I realized that the for the core antibody, it's kind of like present all through. As long as the person has infection, all through the infection life, you just sit there.
It will be there.
Okay.
It will be there. It's just the duration of that infection that will determine the type that will be there. So if it's the acute at the window, it will be the IgM.
You see the IgM.
Yeah.
So then the others is the IgG.
If it gets to chronic and recovery, it will be the IgG. Yeah.
But Dr. Bawale, how come the immunization did not provoke formation of IgM, IgG?
No,
I know you.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, the component of that vaccine doesn't contain the core. It doesn't contain the core. Do you get it? There's a core antigen. See, look at the core antigen, HBC antigen. You can see, Dr. Olusola. That antigen they are giving them is only for the surface. It's not for the core. So that is why it doesn't, trigger the anti-HBC. It's just for the surface, yeah. So, and once they give it, the body month immune response clears it out. So you will not see the cough, and and of course, once you are able to even produce antibody against the antigen, the body will have cleared your antigen now. Both of them cannot exist together. You cannot have the vaccine and be having antibody again. One will fight each other and they will, so that is that. So let's go to HIV today. HIV, Dr. Abisola, I don't know if maybe we just try to talk about the drug so that your mind will be settled and you'll be happy.
No, let's start from here. We need to start from here.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So, HIV genome. Sorry. HIV has RNA genome, and the RNA genome of HIV has the genome of HIV has 2 RNA strands that are positive cells. That's that. 2 RNA strands. It has 2 RNA. You guys can see the 2 RNA strands. They are there. True RNA. That's that about the genome for HIV. It contains some genes. There are actually many, but I'm happy that they've localized it to 3 for us. And those 3 are the ones that code for the structural proteins. So what are these structural proteins? The envelope, the ENV envelope, the GAG. So I don't know how they came about this GAG. Okay, yeah, it's actually an acronym for something, but I can't remember the acronym again. So the GAG is one that is talking about the coating, which includes the capsid and the matrix, while the pole is for the enzymes, reverse transcriptase, integrase, and protease. So let's take it again. The envelope, the 3 structural proteins. Number 1, the envelope, which is the outermost one, ENV, glycoprotein, 2 glycoprotein. GP120, GP41. The gag is for the coating after the envelope. The gag coating after the envelope. P24 and P17. P24 and P17. Then the enzymes, which is the pole, reverse transcriptase, integrase, and protease enzyme. Reverse transcriptase, integrase, and protease. Now, HIV, when somebody gets infected with HIV, maybe due to sexual contact and the virus finds its way into the body, it has its own preference, something called tropism. The cells that it wants to infect. So it has predilection for affecting the T cells and the macrophages. But at the early stage of infection, it affects both the macrophages and the T cells. It has
Maybe you're not muted, though.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So it has to enter through those it has to bind to those cells and enter there. Now, how does it do that entry? The outer protein, which is the envelope protein, contains some glycoprotein. Now, the glycoprotein is actually coming from a parent glycoprotein that we call GP160. That is the parent glycoprotein, GP160. The protease enzyme of this HIV is going to split this GP160 into two, GP120 and GP41. GP120 is a docking glycoprotein. You guys can see the shape. It docks. It just fixes. Why the GP41 is a transmembrane. That one spans the envelope membrane. You can see it's a transmembrane protein. It spans the envelope membrane of the HIV. They have different function. Now, when the HIV wants to enter into the cell it wants to infect, maybe the macrophage or the T cell. Let's use the T cell, for example. This GP120 is going to bind to one receptor first, which is a CD4 receptor on the T cell. I want to say to you guys now that CD4 is also present in macrophage. Are we aware of that?
CD4, CD16 and what?
CD4 is there. Okpogon. In fact, it's very many, but CD4 is part. So that is why HIV can infect macrophages. If they don't have CD4, they will not be able to infect them. So I think there's a table in immunology where we can confirm that. Abi?
Okay, let me just do that quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, you can continue.
So GP120 binds to the CD4 receptor on the T lymphocyte, the T helper cell.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Actually, macrophages CD14 for the PAM, CCR5. Actually, I think it's the CCR5. They didn't write C3b receptors. They didn't really write CD4 here.
Okay. But CD4
and then
is there.
CD14.
CD4 is there.
Okay.
CD4 is there. So
Okay.
now it attached to that CD4 or the T cell, and that CD4 GP120 interaction is going to cause a conformational change in the GP120 that will now make it attach to another co-receptor. So the co-receptor is now what is different. If you are thinking about T cell, the co-receptor is CXCR4. If you are talking about macrophage, the co-receptor is CCR5. So we have CXCR4 and CCR5. So because we are looking at T cell, the co-receptor that GP120 will now further bind to again is CXCR4. Now, when that binding happens, they are now going to activate our transmembrane protein, which is the GP41. GP41 will now attach the envelope of this virus to the cell membrane, the plasma membrane of the T cell, so that this virus will now be able to gain entry into the T cell. When they now enter into the T cell, the reverse transcriptase enzyme of this HIV will now kick in. Protease has done its own. It has clipped 160 into GP120 and 41. Protease now start working. reverse transcriptase will now start working. So because of the fact that this is 2 strands of RNA, well, it has to convert it to DNA so that it can incorporate it into the host, because T cell is an eukaryotic cell. It will not contain RNA. It contains DNA. So in the genome. So what does it want to do? It will convert this to complementary DNA strands, double-stranded, and it will now incorporate it into the host DNA. That is where the activity of integrase comes in. So integrase will help us integrate that RNA genome of the HIV that has been reversibly transcribed into DNA. Then the DNA will now be incorporated into the DNA of the T cell by the integrase enzyme. So the host machinery will now be utilized. So the T cell will help us convert the DNA to mRNA, then from mRNA to protein, so that we can synthesize the viral protein. So part of the viral protein that we are going to synthesize is GP120. GP160. GP160. That GP160 will now be splitted again by GP120 and GP41. Those GP120 and GP41 will now be incorporated into the host membrane. Please, I'm not saying the membrane of the virus. It will be incorporated into the host membrane such that when the virus has replicated in that T cell and is ready to leave the T cell, it's going to bud through the plasma membrane. That's where they live. They form budding through the plasma membrane of the T cell, and they will carry along the GP120 and the GP41. It will not be attached on its own envelope. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. That's why they said here.
So the last part of what you said, the T cell helps to synthesize the virus, to replicate the virus. So from there downwards, I did not really get it.
So you know that T cell will convert. You know, we have integrated the DNA of the HIV into the T cell. Abi now. So
yes.
T cell will convert that DNA to mRNA. It will convert it to protein. You remember that all these proteins are viral proteins. You know, yeah. So that viral protein, part of them is GP160. Abi?
Okay.
Part of them will be the matrix and the capsid protein. Part of them will be the enzymes, the pole, reverse transcriptase, integrase, and protease. Yeah. So this GP161 will now be cleaved by the protease into GP120 and GP41. Again,
okay.
Do you understand? Now, what will now happen is,
okay.
Yeah, so what will now happen is, when they have cleaved it like that, they will now go and attach it to the plasma membrane of that T cell. Do you get? Now, when they want to leave, they will now form budding. They will leave as bud, you know, taking away a fragment of the plasma membrane of the T cell that is containing that GP120 and GP141, so that it will not be attached to its own envelope by the time do you get it? That is it. That is the reason for this statement. They said envelope proteins, they are acquired through budding from the host cell membrane. That is the principle. Now, they have destroyed that cell. They don't come out. They go to infect another one. We have summarized everything that's happening here. But the point I just want to emphasize again is that for early infection, they don't only activate macrophages. So the only difference between macrophages and T-cell infection is just that for the co-receptor for macrophage is CCR5. For the late infection, so for the early infection is both macrophages and T cell, but it's majorly macrophages. So for the late infection, it is predominantly T cell. That is why when we want to assess for marker of AIDS, which is an advanced form of HIV, we will not be checking for macrophage counts because it doesn't make sense. In early infection, you are destroying the macrophage, but in late infection, we are predominantly destroying T cell. So that means the T cell count should be of concern to me when I'm thinking of diagnosis of AIDS. Do you guys get it?
Yes.
So for late infection, yeah, Dr. Toby.
I need clarification on something.
Okay.
Clarification on this thing. So because I want to get this GP120, 41, 120, 41, 120, 160. Is it that the virus is coming with it, or it is after the protein has been synthesized. The host mRNA machinery has converted it to viral proteins. That's GP160 is coming from
Yeah, so I get you.
60 before.
Yeah, I get
I
you.
just
So
want to get that part.
yeah, so the virus is coming with it. But you know that when the virus has infected the cell, it's going to live as progeny. It's going to replicate in the cell and live, Abi, as many copies. You get? Hello?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
So it has it before, Abi.
it has it before. Of course,
120 and
before it can
41
enter,
on its membrane.
exactly, before it can enter, it has to have it.
Okay.
So by the time it's now, we are now trying to explain how it is formed on the next generation of the.
Oh, so okay.
You
So
get it
it
now?
has that the mother virus has it. Then
Definitely.
it cleaves its own protein will be cleaved.
Mhm.
The new one too, as part of its own new proteins, as viral proteins, gets to have its own 160.
Exactly.
That is now going to be cleaved in the host cell. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So they will
On
cleave
the
it to the
plasma
cell. They will now deposit it on the plasma
membrane,
membrane.
Abi.
Yes. They will now deposit it on the plasma membrane of the host cell so that each of those progeny, as they are living, they are just taking it. They are forming buds and they are taking it. Do you guys get? They will just be taking it from the membrane of the T cell. And in the process, they are going to kill the T cell at the end of the day. Hello, guys. Hello?
Yeah.
Should I explain that again?
Yes, please. So
What we are saying is that you know that if the mother virus has synthesized protein, it has synthesized GP160. It is going to have many copies of this GP160. Its protease enzyme will now split those GP160 into many copies of 120 and 41. These many copies of 120 and 41 will now be attached to the plasma membrane of the T cell. You get? Now, such that if you know that if each progeny from this mother now wants to live, because you know it will have if you want to form a progeny, you are going to form the DNA, the RNA rather, and form the protein around it. So it's like, okay, it will replicate. It will form RNA, then surround them with all the proteins that is necessary. The capsid, everything will be there. The only one that will not be there will be the glycoprotein, GP41 and GP120. Those ones will be attached to the membrane of the host cell. Do you get that? Hello?
yes, I get it.
You guys know that if these guys want to replicate, what they will do is that mRNA that is going to protein, some of those mRNA will be reverse transcribed to, sorry, I said DNA. Some of those DNA that was initially, you know that when it entered, RNA was converted to DNA. DNA is now taken to RNA, then to protein. Now, if this HIV wants to form new copies, it's going to reverse transcribe all some of those DNA back to RNA. Then you know that it will have synthesized protein too. It will now be using those protein to form what is necessary for all those progeny. Maybe they need the capsid, they need the all those. You guys get to package it. Do you guys get that? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
I can hear you.
Do you guys understand what I'm trying to say? This is the same process of all those things that we used to explain.
The eléyìí ó wà clumsy díẹ̀ jàre.
No. Oh my god, I'm getting tired. You know that if HIV wants to replicate, you know that it has to form a genome. What is the genome has to be there. Now, part of those genome, it will be converting them back to, you know that when he entered, it is it's converting what's it called? Its own RNA to DNA. Now, the host is going to replicate that DNA, Abi. It will replicate the DNA, right? Then you have multiple copies of the HIV DNA. So those multiple copies will be converted to mRNA. Those multiple mRNA copies will be converted to multiple copies of protein. Protein don't dey ground. You get. Viral protein don't dey ground like that. You get. Now, those DNA, those multiple copies of DNA, some of them will be reverse transcribed back to RNA. RNA don't dey ground. It will now be taking those proteins that are synthesized to be packaging those RNA so that it can form new HIV viron. You get? You know
Okay,
that
okay.
what makes up a viron is the genome and the protein that is surrounding it, right?
Okay.
Now, but to make it complete, it has to have this glycoprotein, right? This glycoprotein on its surface, it has to be there. But those glycoprotein will not be packaged on its surface. That is not how they will package it. What they will now do is that when they have synthesized GP160, the protease enzyme from them, they will use it to cleave those GP160 into multiple copies of GP120 and GP41. Now, those multiple copies will now be attached to the host membrane. The host, where they proliferate here, they will now attach those GP120 and GP41 to their own membrane. Do you guys get that?
Okay.
Now, what they will now do is that all those packaged copies of the viron that is already containing all the protein, all the other protein, as they are about to leave the cell, they will eventually leave the cell. They will kill off the cell and leave. So as they are leaving, they will form budding on those membrane so that they can take up those attached GP41 and GP120 and leave. So this one will take its own leave. That one will take its own leave. You guys get? At the end of the day, it will kill off that cell. Do you understand?
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
So that's why they are saying envelope protein acquired through budding from the whole cell plasma membrane. That is it. So, don't forget this early infection, late infection of the thing. Late infection, T cell only, early infection, macrophages and there. So, people that are homozygous for this CCR5 mutation, they are immune. They are usually immune because you know that we've said it that early infection, you actually need entry through the CCR5 co-receptor on the macrophages. So if there's a problem with the CCR5 is not present, there's no way they can gain entry. So they'll be immune. But if somebody is heterozygous for that mutation, that means that the person will have some copies of CCR5 and not have some copies. So it will just progress slowly. So
Is there any other purpose for CCR5?
No, that's the only thing. It's just
That's the
co-receptor for
only
entry.
thing.
Yeah.
Why can't they just kill off everybody's CCR5?
Yeah. Maybe it's something we can look into with respect to genomics. So, they can just give something that will alter the expression of that protein in the macrophages. So that is it. So I guess it will be very difficult. So maybe that's why we have not figured a way through that mechanism. So the course will be slow with someone that have heterozygous mutation for CCR5. So let's go to HIV diagnosis. HIV diagnosis is very straightforward. So the primary test that you want to do is to do a combination immunoassay. Now, this immunoassay is ELISA. This is antibodies now. But you're actually doing a combination immunoassay that you are detecting both the P24 because P24 is the first antigen that will be produced and it replicates that protein a lot. So it's present in very high amounts. So there's P24 antigen, immediately there's infection, even before the antibodies comes around. So to increase the sensitivity of that test, you are doing a combination immunoassay that is detecting P24 as well as the HIV-1 and 2 antibody. We have two forms of HIV, HIV-1, HIV-2. HIV-1 is one that is global. HIV-2 is the one that is localized to Africa. HIV-2 is slowly progressing in its course. It's not very severe. The viremia is not very high like HIV-1. HIV-1 is more virulent. That one is kills fast. And HIV-2 kind of select the drug that it responds to. But overall, HIV-2 is milder compared to HIV-1. So you are doing a test that is combining the detection of both the antibody and the antigen. Mind you, this is not a rapid test kit. This is actually ELISA. You are do we need to explain the process? Let's just move. That the process is like a little bit. You share ELISA.
Dr. Babali.
Yes, Dr.
I saw a question on the process in the self-assessment.
Okay. So what happens? What happens is that the major form of ELISA is actually to detect antibody, but we have some ELISA that can detect antigen. So let us start with the antibody first. So what you will do is that you collect blood sample from somebody, you centrifuge it, you collect the serum. That's where the antigen and the antibody will be. When they get the serum, they are going to, we are just going to go straight, we cannot describe the process, precisely. So what they do is that they get antigen, they get synthetic recombinant antigen of HIV. They attach it to some wells. They have like a plate. So wells, like spaces. So they attach that antigen to there. It is adsorbed to that well. It's attached permanently. So they will now pour that serum containing the person's antibody. The antibody, we are expecting the person to be having antibody because the person is HIV positive. So if the antibodies are there, they will be in the serum. So you add the serum to that well containing fixed antigen. Then we expect the antibodies to bind to the antigen. So there's going to be, an interaction. So the antibody will bind to the antigen. They wash it off. So any unbound antibody will be removed. They wash it off. Then the next thing they will do is to add secondary antibodies that can bind to that antibody that you have attached initially. So they will add antibodies that can bind to antibody in the serum of someone that has HIV. So that's the secondary antibody. That one is the one that is connected to an enzyme. It's enzyme linked. They will add it. They will wash it again. Anyone that doesn't bind to the antibody, it will be removed. Then the next thing is now to add an enzyme, a substrate that an enzyme can act on, so that when they generate the product, that product will be connected to a probe that can, produce light like fluorescence. So that's what they do. So they add a substrate to that. After they've added that secondary antibody, they will now add a substrate that the antibody can catalyze. So once they add that substrate and the antibody catalyzes it, generate a product, they will evaluate that reaction product in terms of fluorescence so that they can, evaluate the positivity. That one's the one. It's from the fluorescence that they can say, if it's and if the sufficient antibody is present or absent. So that one is the work of computer to now do. So that's just the process. The first thing you are adding to a well antigen of HIV that's recombinant or synthetic. You get the person's serum, you add it there. That person's serum is supposed to contain antibody. The antibody will bind to the antigen. Even if the serum contains HIV antigen, it will be washed off because the antigen will not bind to the antigen on the plate. So it is only antibody to HIV that will bind. So the next thing is now to add a secondary antibody that is enzyme linked. So that one can bind to the antibody that have bound to the antigen. So they will now add a substrate. So the substrate is going to get catalyzed by the enzyme on the secondary antibody, and they are going to generate fluorescence that we can use to assess if it's positive or negative. That is for the...
So overall, it's just the antibody that is binding that they are detecting, Abi.
Yes, it's the antibody that they are detecting. For the antibody form of ELISA, you can also detect antigen. So for the antigen one, what you'll be adding to the plate initially will not be antigen, it will be antibody to HIV. You add antibody to the HIV on the plate, you add the person's serum that is containing the antigen. So the antigen will bind to the antibody. You now add another secondary antibody that can bind to that antigen. So that one is enzyme linked again. You now add the substrate, so they will catalyze that. That's just the process. I think Dr. Abisola, I think with this analogy, you should be able to palm that question now.
Yeah, I just remember that the question they asked, it was even for parvovirus. The announced researcher is looking for how to vaccinate. I will send the question when we are done.
Okay. So yeah, so that's that about the ELISA. So if the antibodies and antigen are present, you can move. You will not stay there. You will not stay there because you need to do confirmatory test. That is not confirmatory. You need to do confirmatory test. So if you do that and the person is negative, it means that the person doesn't have any HIV. You stop. So there are 4 possibilities. Is it that the person you detect the antigen antibody against HIV-1 and not against HIV-2, or you detect against HIV-2 and not HIV-1, or you detect both, or both of them are negative. So, okay, no, that's not what you are supposed to say. You know that if you have done this HIV-1 and 2 antibody and PCR, if it's positive, it means that the person has presence of maybe HIV-1 antibody, or presence of maybe HIV-2 antibody, or presence of maybe the P24 antigen only. So we don't know which of the three is there. But we shall know that it is one of them is there. So you now want to do HIV-1, HIV-2 antibody differentiation immunoassay. If both of them are not there, it will not be positive. That's one thing I'm supposed to say. Let me explain what I mean. An antigen and an antibody have to be present before this test can be positive. But you guys must remember that you are actually testing for two antibodies. One against antibody HIV-1 and the one against antibody 2. So in some individual, it might be that the HIV-2 is the one that is there. It might be that the antibody against HIV-1 is the one that is there, but the P24 is central to both of them. So that one is central to both of them. And for it to be positive, P24 antigen has to be positive, and either of these antibodies too have to be there. Now, the next thing is how to do HIV-1, HIV-2 antibody differentiation immunoassay, so that to separate between the antibody of HIV-1 or HIV-2, that we want to know which one of them is there, or is it both of them that is there? Because once it's positive, we are sure that the P24 antigen is there, so we don't have any problem with that one. Then it will now tell you HIV-1 is there, fine. In the second one, it is HIV-2 that is there. In the third option, it is both of them that is there. In the fourth, both of them are not there. So that means there's a problem. So if HIV-1 and HIV-2 antibody are not there, that means that what do you guys think is likely happening? Anybody? And P24 is positive. What do you guys think is that likely happening?
If what?
If this person is having indeterminate HIV-1 and HIV-2, both of them are negative, or non-reactive, rather, what do you think is happening?
Can it be window period?
No. Let's say window period. Yeah, window period. It just means that this person has not undergone seroconversion, because the antigen is there, but the antibody is not yet present. Maybe the person did the test very early before seroconversion. And the most specific test, the most sensitive test that you can do to rule out HIV is actually the nucleic acid test. That's what you can do. That's the one for sure. That's the baba. But you guys know that we cannot jump to be doing nucleic acid because this test is very expensive and it involves a lot of process. So that is why you don't start it first. But if you need a tiebreaker, you have to employ that technology. So at this point where we have indeterminate value for the antibody, we have to do that because we are noticing that the antigen is present initially, and we now tested for each of those antibodies separately. They are not now present. That means there's something going on. It means that the person has not undergone seroconversion. So you need to do your HIV-1 nucleic acid test. So once you do that, you'll be able to figure out which is this. So this nucleic acid is just trying to evaluate the genome of the HIV. That one is always present. From the point of infection, the genome is there. So the genome is there. That one is a basic test. So it will always pick it once it's there. So there are two forms of that nucleic acid test. You can do a nucleic acid amplification test, which is a qualitative test, or you can do a reverse transcription PCR test. Now, this nucleic acid amplification test is like a test that is assessing for the RNA of the HIV. That's what it's doing. It is a yes or no test. Is it that the RNA is there or is it not there? It is not actually used to. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is not actually used to quantify the load. No, you just want to know qualitative detection. Is it there or it is not there? Now, if you now want to quantify the load of the virus, what you now do is now to employ reverse transcription PCR technology. What you are doing is you get the serum, of course, the serum will contain the RNA. You will now add this RT that will now convert it to, what's it called, DNA. I know that PCR is working on DNA. It is DNA that they polymerize. So you add your DNA polymerase that will now produce multiple copies of your DNA so that you can, quantify the amount of virus that is there. Hello? Do you guys get? So all the RNA that is there will be converted to DNA. So that is the one that you can now use to figure out, okay, this is the amount of viral load that this person is having. So that is that. So Western blot is no longer recommended by the CDC for confirm. We don't do Western blot again. That is good news. Less stress, less thing to know. So yeah. So in babies, you don't actually do this HIV. This first one that we said, this HIV 1 and 2 antibody immunoassay, you don't do it. You don't do it because you are likely to have false positive. Why? Because if the mother of the baby is affected, the mother is definitely going to transmit the IgG form of the antibody to the baby. So the baby is going to have false positive status. So you don't do antigen antibody testing for babies. So what you just do is to establish the viral load. It is the viral load that you use to know. You assess for the genome. Just check the genome and assess for the viral load to know, if that baby is infected or not. So that don't forget that because babies that are bound to HIV infected mother will always have that antibody because it will be transferred. So the best test you do is just to assess for the viral load of that person. Yeah, of the baby. So what is AIDS? AIDS can be diagnosed when the CD4 count is less than 200. We've said it that AIDS is like a late or one of the complications of HIV. So it's a late form of HIV. It's a late form of HIV. And we said late form of HIV infect T cells. So it is a number of T cells that have been destroyed that we can use to make diagnosis of AIDS. So if the T cells number has gone down to less than 200, it means that it's a terrible person is having a terrible situation. So that is AIDS automatically. The number of CD4 cells should be between 500 to 1.5. So in them, it is less than 200. If you don't want to use that, you can detect the HIV. So someone that's HIV positive with any AIDS-defining illness like cystic pneumonia, Kaposi, sarcoma, oral candidiasis, you can say that person is having AIDS. So someone that's HIV negative that is having cystic pneumonia is not here too. So I think we should be able to figure out this diagnosis now. You do your immunoassay, which is a combined immunoassay. It's a combined. We are detecting both the PH24 and the HIV antibody. So if both of them are there, you want to go down to confirmatory. If both of them are not there, the person is negative. So if the person is having both of them, you want to know, okay, is it antibody against HIV type 1 or type 2? So that one will tell you. Now, if you don't see anything, there's no antibody against type 1 and type 2 is negative. That is when you now employ your nucleic acid test to figure out, what is really happening. So if HIV is actually there properly, that one will take it. That one will pick it for us. So that is that. So let's talk about the 8 defining illnesses. So there are a lot of them. Some of them come around following reactivation. Like someone that has TB. TB is already there, latent, sitting in the upper lobe, sitting in the middle lobe rather, or lower lobe. So once there's a reactivation, it goes to the upper lobe and start causing caseous cavities and fibrocystic cavities. Someone that has HSV, they can also reactivate. And if this is HSV type 1, so how will they present? HSV type 1 reactivation.
HSV type 1
Yeah, reactivation.
can be reactivation.
What is the presentation? We said it.
Is it encephalitis?
No. It's not encephalitis. They'll present with herpes labialis. Herpes
Oh,
labialis.
sorry.
Herpes labialis. If it's HSV type 2, what's it likely to come with? HIV type 2. You guys are forgotten.
Hey.
Dr. Zuliat,
Yeah.
Is
I also
it
remember now
the
something
one?
about
Is it for dental people?
Hey, I don't know where you guys are getting all these diagnoses.
it
Wow.
says
HIV type 2, the activation, it will be recurrent ulcers.
um,
Recurrent ulcers.
yeah, good answers.
So reactivation for type 3 or varicella zoster will be what?
That one is the neurologic
Shingles.
No,
epistemological record.
that's the
That was
complication.
one.
That's the complication. Yeah. So
That's encephalitis, Abi.
no, that's the shingles. Like when the HSV, when the varicella is now becoming reactivated, they will come as shingles. That's it. Mhm. They will not
Okay,
come as
Baba, which one is the encephalitis?
no. Encephalitis is not
It's
linked to the
HSV1.
you can see encephalitis.
HSV1,
Yeah, HSV1. HSV1 is encephalitis.
but it's not the reactivation.
And if they are immunosuppressed too, it will be there. You get it can be there. Immunosuppression can also make them predisposed to encephalitis. Here you get. But
Mm.
one of the typical features, that is very common for reactivation is the herpes labialis. Encephalitis too is there, Sha. Here you get, Dr. Abisola. Yeah.
Yes.
So
So
recurrent ulcer for HSV2, labialis for HSV1.
yeah, that's the way the lesion will typically present. They will not be having gingival stomatitis for primary. Primary will be gingival stomatitis. Secondary will be more of herpes labialis. You guys get. So
Yes. So which one is much more serious?
no, encephalitis is much
Is
more
it
serious, definitely.
no like the reactivation or the primary? The primary is the serious one now.
Yeah, the primary one is the serious one. That's correct.
Which one did you say is gingival
Yes.
stomatitis again?
HSV type 1.
Primary.
Eh?
Primary.
Primary.
Primary, yeah. Okay. So in people that are HIV, they can have dissemination of bacterial infection, they can have dissemination of fungal mycosis, they can have non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Why? Because they can have infection from Epstein-Barr. Now let's take those guys one by one. For people that have low count, like less than 500, so it's three spectrum, less than 500, 200, and 100. So for less than
But is
500,
Dr. Toby here? I don't hear her voice at all. Oh. Can we just shout her name in case she's sleeping?
Dr. Toby,
Dr.
Or something.
Toby.
Hello, people of God. I'm so sorry.
they said you are not moving stuff. Okay.
I had to attend to an emergency.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you, sorry. Did you ask a question?
Plenty.
We needed your help.
Hey,
We needed help from Macedonia. We could not get help from Macedonia.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So, so the way I just learned these guys, the first
But
one.
what question did you ask? No, the last question.
Okay. So secondary lesion for HSV type 1, how would they present?
HSV type 1, recurrent oral ulcers. Herpes labialis, recurrent.
Herpes labialis. Thank you.
Herpes labialis. I'm confused.
We said it that day.
Okay, recurrent is type 2, right?
Recurrent is type 2. Recurrent is type 2.
Okay. 2 is recurrent. 2 is second time. 2 is second time. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So for this pathogen count of a team, so the first two, they are very similar. Oral thrush and oral hairy leukoplakia, they are differential. So you palm that one like that. Oral thrush, that's the first. Just put it at the back of like, okay, someone that has HIV, the first thing is oral thrush. Oral thrush will be there. So and oral hairy leukoplakia, they are the same thing. The only difference is that for the oral thrush, you can scrape it off using spatula. Scrapable white plaque with pseudohyphae on the microscopy. So this pseudohyphae, what form of candida is this? Anybody? Pseudohyphae, what form is that?
Candida albicans.
Yeah, what forms is this pseudohyphae? What form of?
You're asking if it's the mold or the spore form.
Yes, this is a yeast.
It's the yeast.
And what temperature are you going to see this?
normally you should see it like
Body temperature.
room temperature.
Body temperature.
Yeah,
Okay.
body temperature.
Okay. So does that now
But it's
come for
abnormal in Canada.
nice one? So what temperature will we now see? What's the temperature?
27 or so.
20.
I mean,
It's 20.
20,
The other one is 37.
37.
So you see budding yeast with pseudohyphae on microscopy. You know that is Candida. For the Epstein-Barr causing oral hairy leukoplakia, you see the unscrapable white plaque. So by the time you are trying to scrap this one, it's going to be bleeding because it will not go. It's very adherent. It will not go. That's the only thing you can use to separate these guys. They are very similar. They look so much alike. Oral hairy leukoplakia and oral thrush. You have settled that one. The next thing is now to remember tuberculosis. Tuberculosis. So tuberculosis. I think it is this number one that is even the hardest to remember. Tuberculosis. You know, there's reactivation of latent tuberculosis, then Kaposi sarcoma, HHV6, HHV8, you know, Kaposi sarcoma, which is going to present as perivascular spindle cells that, you know, if you do your biopsy, what are we going to see? Biopsy of Kaposi sarcoma, people of God.
For Kaposi sarcoma, we should
How do you differentiate that from
see this thing
Bartonella?
inside now, inside the.
Yeah, so what is going to be there? What will be the component of the infiltrate?
Leukocytes.
Lymphocytes.
Lymphocytes.
Lymphocytes. So they are vascular tumors. Just keep that one like that. You need it. You need it in the next step. Then add HPV to that. So that will cause squamous cell carcinoma at different sites, anal cervix and all those things. So let's take it again. You remember the two thrush, oral thrush and oral leukoplakia. Remember TB, Kaposi sarcoma, and papilloma. That is that. That is all. Now, that Kaposi sarcoma that you are remembering is the localized one. The one in step 1, less than 500, is localized form. The one that is only affecting the skin. Because we said that Kaposi sarcoma can affect the lungs and the GIT. So you'll be seeing that in someone that has count of less than 200. So you have to remember that okay, in the second stage, they are going to be having Kaposi sarcoma, which is disseminated, affecting the pulmonary area, the lymphatics, and the GIT. Travels around the lymphatic, the GIT, and the pulmonary circulation. So that they can have hemoptysis because of the GIT affectation, they can have bloody diarrhea, they can have abdominal pain, intestinal obstruction, and all those things. Then the next thing is now to palm it as affectation of the brain and affectation of the lung. Affectation of the brain, affectation of the lung. So what are the brain problems? JC virus. JC virus reactivation. That's the one that affects the brain and the lung, So what's the brain one? Progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy, which is going to present as non-enhancing area of demyelination. What areas of the brain is going to be demyelinated in this guy? JC. We've said it.
Occipital and pirouettal.
Fantastic, man. Thank you, Dr. Lushola. Occipital and pirouettal. That was a very fast word. So the person will be having problem with personality, behavior, and all those things. JC virus reactivation, progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy. Then the next one is now to remember HIV dementia. HIV dementia. You guys remember when we were talking about dementia in neuro? We talked about this guy. HIV assured,
Dementia, yes.
That is very, very fast. Very.
Yeah, rapid progressive.
Very...
Yeah. So, HIV assured dementia that's associated with cerebral atrophy or neuroimaging. You'll just be seeing that there'll be spaces everywhere in the brain. The cortex has atrophied, and you are going to.
Is a normal pressure type or something? Am I taking it too far?
So it can cause hydrocephalus escarvo. That's what you want to say.
Escarvo, yes.
Yeah. So the one that causes normal pressure is Atkins triad. That one is not a disease like this. So that one is different.
Okay.
So normal pressure is different. So, but it can cause hydrocephalus escarvo. That CSF will be occupying all these spaces that has atrophied. So what you typically see is what's it called? You see microglial nodules are forming multinuclear giant cells. That is it. This HIV are going to start activating those microglia in the brain. They start fusing together and form giant nodules. But once you remember that, also know that HIV can cause nephropathy. What form of nephropathy will HIV cause? Anybody?
Anybody? This.
Wouldn't it be the membranous?
Is it that diffuse or membranoproliferative?
Hey, Ivan.
No, I thought like the chronic illnesses, it will cause those ones.
HIV is not part of them. Maybe that's what you use, but HIV is not part.
Okay. Yes. So there is HIV associated nephropathy actually. Motibo Ivan.
It's FGSS. That's focal segmental growth. That's sickle cell, urine, obesity, HIV. Focal segmental.
Oh, so they all cause FSGS. So the FSGS HIV is causing is the HIV associated nephropathy.
Yes.
I knew it was between the two, but I know that they were close to themselves in the textbook.
Because of hepatitis. It's actually because the hepatitis syphilis are with membranous. That's the problem. Sure, you get all these hepatitis.
Yeah.
So that's why. You know, I could not forget. I cannot forget because when I was doing that job, one consultant, when I was in hematology, he asked me, "What is the histologic finding someone that has sickle cell nephropathy?" So, you know, when I said
sickle cell nephropathy, is the FSGS now? FSGS, right?
So he now asked me,
and then they also have renal papillary necrosis too.
Yeah, okay. I think I remember. This was how I got the question. So I did not give him spinal level. What he said was, when he asked me, I was confused. Histology. What he now said was, you see that pattern in HIV. That's how I found it. So I was able to, I knew this Ivan. So when I said, okay, I just said FSGS. Now I said, yeah, so that's correct. So since then, I've always married both of them together. So
which one are you saying, Ivan? Which code is Ivan, or what is Ivan?
Ivan, HIV-AN. HIV.
No, be code. Doctor, not be code.
HIV was associated nephropathy. Let me ask.
Yes, HIV-AN.
HIV, Ivan. So then that's the. So once you can use the dementia, once you can remember.
So are you saying that it's the same thing as FSGN?
No, the nephropathy in HIV, that nephropathy, the type of nephropathy is FSGS.
Exactly. It's going to cause focal segmental glomerulosclerosis of the vessels. You get.
Okay, Ivan.
Just like diabetes zone is Gekimestiwistin. Jesus Christ, Lord.
Oh no,
but you just say
the name of the kidney,
nodular glomerulosclerosis.
Nodular glomerulosclerosis. Yes, that's how to remember.
Toby, are you beating yourself for real?
I was beating the table.
She wants to be saying everything now.
Like it's so painful.
Something that if you see it in the question, you palm it. That's why I don't really worry myself. I know all this spelling, all this full name. I know that once I see it in the question, this is not a written question. Thank God, it's not written exam. So
I swear, there's no day I don't thank God it's not written.
That's it too. Because meanwhile, if you guys see my writing, oh my God, you run away.
Can we move, Dr.
My writing was in my class.
I can guess because people that are very cerebral like this, their writing is the worst. I know very
so
well.
because my writing is fine, I'm not cerebral. It's not your fault.
No.
What are you saying?
They don't have time for decoration.
Don't let us focus.
Cerebral atrophy.
Oh my God! But I really need to improve on it. It's not good though.
You can't change it again. Your left hand, the right part of your brain has determined your writing.
It's terrible. Okay, so
it has been destined.
Dr. Abisola's aim is pharmacology.
Dr. Babawale
taking us there.
He told us JC virus belongs to Bunya. Is it Bunya?
No.
Is it Bunya?
It's not Bunya.
JC and BC. JC and BC.
What was it? It's not
JC and BC.
They are not even RNA virus. Bunya is RNA virus.
God of heaven.
They are DNA now.
JC and BC. They are not.
It starts with P.
Yes. So what's the other P? We have one P. What's the other thing?
Picona, they are not Picona. Are they Picona?
No, Picona
No,
is
Picona is
RNA.
RNA.
We have
Picona
pox,
is
we
RNA.
have papilloma, and the last P is what I can't remember.
Paramyxo.
Hey, Paramizo.
No, Paramizo is RNA. What's the other
Polyoma.
P now?
Polyoma.
Yes,
Polyoma.
You know
yes,
what, guys?
polyoma.
You know what, guys?
Polyoma.
You know what? You know, I said it that day that this is something that most people will not pay attention to. Let us as individuals pay attention
Polyoma
to so that we'll be
JCBK.
standing.
Polyoma JCBK. Polyoma JCBK.
You know, I
Polyoma
said it that day.
JCBK. Polyoma
Polyoma.
But Barry Lopter,
Polyoma. And it's not, don't make the
I
mistake.
remember like this by God's grace.
It sounds like RNA virus. Like it sounds like all those RNA, but it's not that, it's DNA. J and BK.
it's there now.
And what did we say about
Yeah.
BK? What did we say about BK?
B for kidney, bad kidney.
Exactly. So it happens in people that have renal, that have received renal transplant. Okay. So guys, let's follow our code though. Brain, the HIV dementia, and the JC. We have talked about the disseminated form of Kaposi. Now, it remains the lung, pneumocystic girovecii, then histoplasma capsulatum. So it's going to cause all these things that you guys are seeing here is actually pneumonia symptoms like fever, weight loss, fatigue, cough, dyspnea. If you guys remember when we were taking the systemic mycosis, they did not emphasize on this. You guys remember that because they've said it initially. Because they've said it initially that all of them can cause pneumonia.
Pneumonia.
So they are just.
So this is the one that is in cave, right?
Exactly. This is the
people
cave.
that go to cave.
Exactly.
Cave.
So
Okay.
what's the region? Cave. What's that region?
Oh yeah, Ohio.
Ohio,
Mississippi.
Mississippi.
I got read.
Mississippi. Correct. Ohio Valley disease, cave disease, histoplasma capsulatum. And what do you see?
Oh, Ohio Valley cave disease. Oh, yeast in macrophages. Macrophages. And they have granuloma.
Yes. Yeast.
But I learned the mycosis very well. I learned your mycosis
I'm
very
happy.
well.
No, fungi is one of the others actually. Like it's
coccidiosis, the disease is blastoconitis.
This is the pronunciation. Oh my God.
Somebody is so abusing now.
No.
Then,
you guys
this
can see
thing
now
is
when I'm making
ferrous.
mistakes, you see easy. Easy to the pronounce.
One is ferrous.
Yeah, so which one is ferrous? Guys? Which one is that?
Coccidiosis.
Yes.
Coccidiosis.
That's coccidiosis.
So blasto is blastoconidia.
So what's peculiar about blasto? What do you see?
Two double broad base.
Broad base. Which one is narrow base? Which one is narrow body?
Narrow base is the
Porotrix.
No.
narrow. Is it not the aspergillus?
Aspergillus long.
Is it
not sporo?
It's sporo now. What did I say?
Is it not sporotrix?
Cigar shaped man. Yeah,
mucorrhizopus.
Okay, ẹ jẹ́ ká calm down. Kò kí ń ṣe sporo. Mi rò pé sporo ní narrow base. Èyí ní is Cryptococcus neoformans.
Oh, but if you say Cryptococcus, I was thinking about the. Sorry.
Only India ink.
You guys, that's the only thing I was thinking of. India ink.
I know it was sandwiched between the aspergillus and the mucus rhizopus inside that.
Muzo is irregular. Muco is irregular broad.
It's the broad one, not separated.
What's the clincher for you? What's the clincher for you for aspergillus? What do you see that you'll be rest assured that aspergillus? What will you see? On silver stain, like septate hyphae. Which is what's the angle? What's the angle?
45.
Dr. Zirai,
yes.
that is all. A mode because it's not dimorphic. A mode that is forming those septate guy at 45-degree branching. That is it. For
As
rhizo,
per
we
Gilos.
said it's going to be wide branching. That is not septate.
90.
Wide
Right, it's
branching.
not separate.
That is not septate. That is your rhizo
Yeah.
and your mucor.
Yeah. It is well.
Hey, Oluwa, ẹ máa gbàdúrà fún mi o.
We have talked about everything. Actually, what you guys know, Allah, some people don't
Jesus
know what you guys
Christ.
know and they are going for that exam and they are passing. It's basic stuff.
Which statistics are you using? They don't be winding us, Daddy.
Okay. Yeah, I will keep quiet.
And overwhelmingly with Tessa.
I've said my own though. You guys should not believe me.
No.
So we've said our
Bullet-shaped virus. Wow.
Eh?
Okay.
Which one is that?
Bullet is rabies, Abi.
Bullet is
Rabies,
Yes.
rabies.
What is the
Yes.
body rabies?
Negri body.
Negri bodies.
Negri body is rabies.
Where is it located?
Where is it located? Thank you.
Purkinje cells of the cerebellum.
You are doing very fine, Dr. Toby.
How does it go?
Hydrophobia is what you
Hydrophobia, phonophobia.
paralysis, coma, agitation.
Yeah.
So how does it go? Dr. Bisa said, how does it go?
Retrograde.
Retrograde.
Using
Well, what are you talking about? Oh, okay.
Using
You will use dynein. So
Dynein.
Antigrade is kinesin.
Omo.
Anterograde.
I feel you guys microbiology is strong. You guys is not just to be honest. You guys just need to go.
We just need to revise it one more time. That
you
is
guys
so
just-
funny.
I
You know that, guys.
swear.
Me, I don't jack this microbiology very well. I've read it too many times. So like, that's why. You guys are just, reading maybe second or third time. So
First time.
or first time.
This is my own first time.
Me, first
You guys are
time.
This is
moving.
my first time.
So we are not even
First time.
Ever.
we cannot even compare us. You guys are moving it first time and you are moving like this. When I was reading first time, I don't say it like this now.
So, Wale, you want our head to be swelling? No, let me drink water before the thing go burst.
Ẹ jọ̀ọ́, ẹ jẹ́ ká continue HIV 16 lu ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ṣàánú.
Okay. So guys,
Oh God.
we are done with the 200. So 200, you just remember, you just carry the Kaposi sarcoma downwards. That okay, Kaposi sarcoma is now becoming disseminated now. It's no longer localized. It's no longer confined to the skin. It's now getting to the pulmonary and the GI. You guys should not forget that. Kaposi sarcoma is more of pulmonary, GI, and lymphatic. Then we talk about the brain and the lungs. The lungs, the cystic and histoplasma, causing the pneumonia. Two pneumonia, histoplasma pneumonia and pneumocystic pneumonia. So what's the brain? HIV, dementia, and GC virus. We are done. Then for the last one, we just remember two things first. Bacteria, avium and toxoplasma, they are together. Avium and toxoplasma, those ones are the last in the spectrum, less than 100. So you can see here that toxo is presenting as brain abscess, multiple ring enhancing lesion on MRI. You guys should not forget that. Multiple ring enhancing lesion, someone that is immunocompromised, you want to think of toxo. So if this guy is having toxo, how do you treat? What do you give to treat? Can you guys remember that?
Trimethoprim. No.
Nice.
Pyrimethamine.
Treat.
Yes.
So you are treating and prophylaxis too, right?
Pyrimethamine and Septrin.
No. Sulfur. That's sulfur plus pyrimethamine. That is the treatment.
Fancy that.
I thought that was what I was saying. Is that not what I'm saying? I said pyrimethamine
for
and
prophylaxis. No, Dr. Zia, it is me that is trying to be sure. You are right. It's me that is trying to be sure.
Yeah.
So you use TMP SMX for prophylaxis.
Exactly.
And as you are prophylaxising, giving it, you are treating pneumocystis jirovecii. But the main treatment is actually Fancida, sulfadiazine pyrimethamine.
Very
Okay,
correct.
thanks.
Very correct.
That's it.
So you remember that with avium. And we said avium can present like TB. It can be present like focal lymphadenitis, like someone that has scrofula. Or if it doesn't present that way, what else? What do we say? Avium.
Diarrhea.
Diarrhea. And it's very common in people that are less than 50 actually. But just married with toxo, both of them. toxo, multiple alination, avium, all those things that we said. Then we now start remembering BCE. So our BCDE, but there's no D. BCDE. Actually, if you have remembered all these ones that are up, you just know that the remaining one will be down.
So, Dr. Babawala, are you saying that my avium is also going to give us Bengal lesion? It's like, maybe I'm not getting you. Is that what you're also saying?
No, when I say
So
No,
marry
the
marry it together.
pneumonias.
like no, what I'm saying is you marry them
get
together
to.
so that you can remember them. Like, okay, once you get to the
Okay.
next 100, the ones that you want to remember first, avium and toxo.
Okay.
Before you now start talking
Okay.
about BCE, BCDE.
Okay. Okay. Like a code so that we
Like a
can used to
code,
remember.
like a
Okay.
code. So what's the B? Bartonella, bacillary angiomatosis. So yeah, you're just going to see red, purple with neutrophilic. That's the only thing about this bacillary. Once they have described their lesion and you are seeing neutrophilic inflammation, bacillary angiomatosis, you know that's your diagnosis straight up. If you are seeing purplish purple and they are biopsy, you are seeing lymphocytic inflammation. Which one is that?
Come again.
That's Kaposi now.
Kaposi.
Kaposi ni.
Purple
I didn't hear the description.
purple papoose or noodles with oh man, I don't tire. Guys,
Wala.
in the evening now, I'll still talking
Wala.
because
Oh yeah, pause the recording.